Funny, isn't it? How people cling to walls and windows as if bricks could protect them from life's little surprises. They call it a home, a sanctuary, a place where the world can't reach them. But life has a habit of knocking anyway, sometimes softly, sometimes like a wrecking ball. And right now, someone out there is pounding on your door in a way you never expected. Not with fists, but with consequences, with truth, with a reality you can't ignore. You see, when everything feels comfortable, people forget how fragile it all is. They forget that security is an illusion, that stability is just a story they tell themselves so they can sleep at night. But you're standing on the edge of something tighter, sharper, more dangerous. You can feel it, can't you? That slow tightening in your chest. That whisper that says something precious is slipping right through your fingers. Chosen one, you're about to lose your home, not because you're weak, not because you failed, but because life decided you needed a shove, not a warning. People cling to comfort like it's some sacred treasure, like the soft pillow of predictable days, and the familiar walls of routine can save them from the storm waiting outside. They hold it tight, afraid to move, afraid to push, afraid to step into anything that demands more than ease. Comfort becomes their shield, their excuse, their quiet little prison. They love it because nothing inside it hurts. Nothing inside it challenges them. Nothing inside it forces them to grow. But what they never understand is that comfort is the very thing that keeps them small, slow, untested. It numbs them. It blinds them. It convinces them that safety is the same as strength. And then life, in its charmingly twisted manner, decides it's had enough of watching people sleepwalk through their own existence. It reaches over, grabs that comfortable little world, and shakes it until all the weak pieces fall right off. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't give warnings. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just collapses. Everything you've been leaning on so you have no choice but to stand on your own feet, not on the cushions you built around yourself. And the collapse feels cruel, terrifying, unfair. But that's the point. That's the design. Because as long as you're wrapped in comfort, your strength never has a reason to show itself. People think strength is something you magically wake up with. They think resilience is inherited, that courage appears when it's convenient. But strength doesn't show up in warm rooms or during easy days. Strength arrives when the world presses its fingers around your throat and whispers, "Now what?" Strength rises when your comfort cracks, when everything familiar crumbles, when you're left staring at the wreckage of the life you thought would last. Only in those moments do you meet the version of yourself that isn't made of softness or excuses, but of fire, instinct, grit. And there is something beautifully unsettling about that moment when comfort dies. It's quiet at first. You feel the shift. You sense the instability. A job falls apart. A home threatens to slip away. A relationship fractures. A plan disintegrates. And suddenly you're standing in the middle of your life with nothing soft to land on. No backup. No certainty. No familiar pattern to hide behind. People panic because they think they're being punished. They think they've lost everything. They mistake the collapse for destruction, never realizing it's actually extraction, pulling out the weaker parts of them so the stronger parts can breathe. Strength has no space to awaken inside a cushioned life. As long as you're comfortable, you're stagnant. As long as everything is easy, You don't adapt. You don't sharpen. You don't evolve. So life uses collapse as a teacher, stripping away the illusions you built to protect yourself from discomfort. It pushes you into situations where you have to make decisions with shaking hands, where you have to confront fears you've hidden for years, where you have to rise without the safety net you always depended on. And in that exact space, the one where everything inside you screams that you're not ready, you discover that you always were. It's almost amusing how people underestimate themselves until life forces them to stop pretending. They say, "I can't handle this," until they're thrown into situations that demand strength. And suddenly, they're doing things they never believed they could. They say, "I'm not built for this," until the collapse leaves them no option but to build themselves again from the ground up. They say, "I'm not strong enough," until strength becomes the only way forward. Comfort never teaches you that. Comfort lies. Comfort tells you you're fragile, but collapse exposes you. It shows you how much force you've been carrying inside, hidden under years of softness and fear. And maybe that's why life takes your comfort right when you feel most attached to it. Not to torture you, not to break you, but to peel away the layers of numbness you've mistaken for peace. To show you that you are not the weak, dependent thing comfort convinced you were. You are something harder, sharper, more capable. But you won't see it until the walls fall, until the floor cracks, until the routine you worshipped crumbles beneath your feet. Only then do you realize that comfort wasn't security, it was sedation. People spend their lives praying for ease, for smooth paths, for quiet days. But if they understood what comfort steals from them, they'd stop begging for softness. They'd realize that every meaningful, powerful version of themselves was born in the middle of a collapse. The strength that carries you forward, the will that refuses to break, the courage that rises when everything else falls apart. Those things only appear when you have nothing left to hide behind. When comfort dissolves, strength steps into the spotlight because it finally has room to breathe. So comfort collapses not because life hates you, not because fate is cruel, but because the universe sees the version of you that you refuse to believe in. It sees the warrior underneath the worrier. It sees the fighter underneath the fear. It sees the potential buried under your need for safety. And to bring that version out, to make it real, it removes the comfort you cling to so desperately. In the end, comfort keeps you still, but collapse pushes you forward. Comfort makes you quiet, but collapse forces you to speak. Comfort hides your strength, but collapse drags it out into the light, where everyone, including you, can finally see it. People have this strange, fragile belief that a home is made of walls and windows, that as long as a roof sits above their head, their life is intact, their identity protected, their strength preserved. They treat those walls like armor, like they're the only thing standing between them and the chaos outside. They forget something important: those walls can fall. They can be taken. They can be ripped away by life in one sudden merciless twist. And when that happens, most people think it's over. They think losing the place they've tied their memories, their routines, their illusions to, means losing their power, their worth, their fight. But that's the trick life loves to play. It takes away the one thing you thought you needed to stand, just to show you that you were walking without it the whole time. Losing your home feels like someone pulled the ground out from beneath you, but what you don't realize is that the fight inside you doesn't live in furniture or familiar rooms or the keys you twist in a lock. Your fight is bone deep. It's in the way you keep waking up when everything in your life tries to put you down. It's in the way your spirit refuses to bow to the pressure that wants to crush you. You don't lose that just because you lose a building. People fear losing their home because it's where they hide from themselves. It's where they pretend everything is fine. Take it away, and they're forced to face the truth they've been avoiding. That life doesn't protect you with walls, it tests you by removing them. Suddenly you're exposed. You can feel every cold wind, every judgment, every doubt creeping in. And that vulnerability scares people, but it's in that exposed, trembling moment that your real fight wakes up. When you have nothing left to retreat into, nothing left to rely on except the fire in your chest, that's when your strength becomes undeniable. There's something strangely liberating in that loss. When the place you called home slips from your hands, you're left holding something far more valuable. You're holding yourself. No distractions, no illusions, just the raw, stubborn, unbreakable part of you that refuses to disappear, no matter how many times life tries to erase it. Losing your home strips away the comfort you use to confuse with courage. It leaves only the courage. And for the first time, you get to meet the version of yourself that doesn't survive because of stability, but because of sheer will. People underestimate the power of a cornered human. When you've been pushed out of the place you called safe, when you're forced into uncertainty, when the world thinks you should fold, that's when your instincts sharpen. That's when you start fighting not for a house, but for your future, not for walls, but for purpose, not for shelter, but for survival. Losing your home doesn't weaken you, it focuses you. It turns every fear into fuel. It forces you to hunt for solutions you never knew you could create. It forces you to move, grow, rise, because staying still is no longer an option. And maybe that's why life takes things so violently, because without loss, you'd cling to your comfort forever. You'd stay small, you'd stay predictable, you'd stay silent. But when everything familiar is taken, when all the noise is gone, the voice inside you becomes louder. You hear your own thoughts clearly. You hear your own hunger. You hear the part of you that says, "This won't break me." That voice becomes the seed of your fight. It becomes louder than fear, louder than doubt, louder than the echo of everything you're losing. Most people never realize that a home can also be a cage, a place where dreams go to sleep, a place where ambition rusts, a place where survival is so easy that fight has no reason to show up. But remove it, tear the cage open, and suddenly the dormant parts of you start waking up. The hustler, the fighter, the builder, the survivor. You start moving differently, thinking differently, being different. Losing that physical space makes space inside you for something stronger, something hungrier, something ready to claw its way back into life with more power than you've ever used before. You might think losing your home means losing the place where you belong, but belonging isn't tied to a location. It's tied to a direction. As long as you still have a direction, a purpose, a next step, you're not lost. You're in motion. And motion is where fighters are made. Fighters aren't born in quiet, stable homes. They're born in chaos, in uncertainty, in the moments when they're forced to rebuild from nothing. They come alive in the ruins. They rise from the pressure. They learn to trust themselves more than they trust walls. And here's the part most people never see until it happens. When you lose your home, you also lose the illusion that you can't survive without it. But you can. You will. And once you realize that, life becomes a little less frightening. You stop worrying about losing things because you finally understand that the only thing you truly need is the courage to keep going. Everything else can be rebuilt. Everything else can be regained. But the fight, that internal, defiant, relentless fight, never leaves you. It grows stronger when everything else falls apart. So losing your home doesn't mean losing your fight. If anything, it means the fight has finally arrived. The part of you that was waiting in the shadows, waiting for the moment life pushed too hard, waiting for the moment comfort died, that part rises now. Not because you chose the struggle, but because the struggle chose you. And it chose you for a reason. You are the kind of person who fights even when the ground disappears. The kind of person who keeps moving even with nowhere to return to. The kind of person who doesn't need walls to be unbreakable. People love comfort. They wrap themselves in it like a blanket, convinced it protects them, convinces them everything is fine, keeps them from feeling the sharp edges of life. Comfort is warm, predictable, quiet. It lulls you. It whispers soothing lies into your ears, makes you believe you've grown just because time has passed, makes you believe you're strong just because nothing has tried to break you yet. Comfort hides the truth. It always does. And the truth is far more unsettling than most people want to admit. Pressure, though, pressure is honest. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. It doesn't pretend. It doesn't play nice. Pressure walks into your life without knocking, grabs you by the collar, and shoves you against the cold reality of who you actually are. Not who you pretend to be when things are stable. Not who you imagine yourself as when the world is quiet. But who you become when everything starts squeezing your mind, your plans, your patience, your faith. You see, comfort gives you illusions. Pressure gives you identity. Most people avoid pressure because they're terrified of seeing themselves clearly. They know, deep down, that comfort makes them look better than they are. In comfort, everyone thinks they're patient. Everyone thinks they're focused. Everyone thinks they're strong. But strength isn't proven when life is gentle. Strength shows up when life digs its claws into you. When the bills pile up, when the relationships strain, when the plans crumble, when the future looks like a blank wall. That's when you find out what was sleeping inside you. That's when the real version of you steps out of the shadows. And that's the funny thing. Pressure isn't the villain people imagine. It's the mirror, the one that doesn't lie. It exposes your cracks, but it also exposes your courage. It shows you your fears, but it also shows you your fire. It reveals the weaknesses comfort kept hidden, but it also uncovers the strengths you didn't know you had. Pressure strips you down, but not to destroy you, to reveal you. To peel off the layers of comfort that you hid behind, to make you see where you're fragile and where you're fierce. Think about it. A person sitting comfortably in a soft chair, with everything going according to plan, never truly knows themselves. They don't know what they'll do when life tightens around their throat. They don't know how loud their heartbeat becomes when they're cornered. They don't know how fast their mind starts calculating, fighting, searching for a way out. They don't know how deep their resilience goes, or how sharp their instincts truly are. They only meet those parts of themselves when pressure steps into the room and shuts the door behind it. People talk about growth like it's a gentle upward climb, like it's made of soft mornings and peaceful reflections. No, growth is born from friction, from discomfort, from fear, from those nights where you stare at the ceiling wondering how much more you can take. From those moments when the world pushes so hard that you either break or become unbreakable. Pressure is the sculptor that shapes you. Comfort is the blanket that hides the sculpture, so you never have to see what you've become. Pressure reveals your patience or your impatience. It reveals your discipline or your excuses. It reveals your loyalty or your selfishness. It reveals your ambition or your laziness. It reveals whether you crumble the second life pushes you, or whether you lean into the push with a smile that scares even your own doubts. Pressure pulls off the mask that comfort lets you wear and forces you to look at what's underneath. And strangely, there's a thrill to it. When everything starts tightening around you, when circumstances close in like walls shifting closer, you start to feel something awaken, something primal, something electric. It's the part of you that doesn't come alive when everything is peaceful. It's the part that only wakes up when you're tested. You feel your mind get sharper, your senses heighten. Your motivation hits you like a punch to the chest. Pressure awakens the version of you that comfort suffocated with softness. People think pressure is punishment, but maybe, just maybe, it's preparation. Maybe life applies pressure because it knows what you're capable of, even when you don't. Maybe it squeezes you because diamonds don't form in a warm bed. They form in crushing, unbearable weight. They form when everything around them presses in from every direction. And that pressure doesn't destroy the diamond, it defines it, makes it something stronger, something clearer, something valuable. Maybe life is trying to do the same with you. Of course, comfort will always try to drag you back. It will whisper, "Stay here. Don't push yourself. Don't look too closely. Don't test your limits." Because comfort knows that the moment you step into pressure, the moment you embrace it instead of running from it, you'll discover something that makes comfort powerless. You'll discover who you really are. Not the soft version, not the protected version, the resilient one, the relentless one, the one who doesn't need things to be easy in order to move forward. Pressure has a way of burning away the unnecessary parts of your life, the fake friends, the hollow habits, the empty dreams, the parts of you that were only alive because comfort allowed them to be. When pressure arrives, it strips your world down to what matters, what's real, what's worth fighting for. It exposes everything else as noise. It leaves you with a cleaner map, a sharper mind, and a heart that beats not because things are easy, but because you refuse to back down. And once you've lived through real pressure, once you've seen what it pulls out of you, you stop fearing it. You start recognizing it for what it is, the gateway to the version of you that comfort will never reveal, the version that rises from the tightening grip, not weaker, but clearer. And when you understand that, when you finally feel what pressure brings out of you, you stop hiding from it. You step toward it. Because now you know that pressure doesn't expose your downfall. It exposes your depth. People talk about crisis like it's a monster hiding under the bed, waiting to drag them down into the dark. They whisper about it, fear it, run from it, pray it never finds them. But crisis isn't the monster, it's the mirror. And the funny thing is, it always shows up exactly when you think you've figured yourself out. When you've built a routine, wrapped yourself in certainty, convinced yourself you know your limits, your strengths, your weaknesses. Then suddenly, without warning, life flips the switch and tosses you into a pit you never planned for. And that's when the real version of you steps forward, the one you never see when life is gentle. Because in calm times, anyone can pretend to be strong. Anyone can act wise. Anyone can play confident. But crisis strips away all the pretty performances. It tears through the layers of, "I'm fine, and I've got this," and reveals something raw, something unpolished, something real. When everything around you falls apart, you start meeting pieces of yourself you didn't even know existed. Not the version you show to the world, the version that rises when your back is against the wall and the ground is cracking beneath your feet. You see, crisis has a way of shutting down the fake parts of you. The polite part, the soft part, the part that needs everything to make sense before it moves. Crisis doesn't care about your schedule or your comfort zone. It throws you into the fire because it knows that only the fire shows what's actually inside you, not who you wish you were, who you are. And the truth is, most people are stronger in crisis than they ever are in comfort. Not because they suddenly gain power, but because crisis forces them to stop sleeping on themselves. Imagine someone walking through life thinking they're fragile, delicate. Then one day something cracks, a job loss, a betrayal, a financial blow, a threat to the place they call home. Suddenly their mind wakes up like someone shook them violently. They start hustling in ways they'd never tried before. They start making decisions with a clarity they didn't know they had. Their instincts sharpen, their focus intensifies. They discover a version of themselves that doesn't panic, it plans. Doesn't surrender, it adapts. Doesn't break, it rebuilds. Crisis reveals this version because crisis doesn't accept excuses. People often say, "I can't handle this," until they're forced to handle it. They say, "I'm not strong enough," until something threatens everything they care about. It's almost poetic, how crisis pulls strength from places you didn't know existed, how it summons courage from the corners of your soul you thought were empty. Crisis doesn't just expose pain, it exposes power. And the world never sees a person's full power until they've been shoved into a moment where the stakes are high and the exit is blocked. And there's something else, something most people never admit. In crisis, life becomes brutally honest. It stops pretending everything is fine. It stops letting you delay decisions. It stops allowing you to hide behind distractions. Crisis pushes you into action. It corners you until you have two choices, sink or rise. And what people forget is that most rise, not because they feel ready, but because the alternative is unacceptable. Crisis cuts away the illusion that you need the perfect moment to change. It forces transformation right now. Look closely at any person who has truly grown, truly evolved, truly hardened into someone unshakable. There's always a story behind them, a moment where the world tried to crush them. And instead of folding, they transformed, not gracefully, not beautifully, but fiercely. Crisis did that. Crisis carved their spine. Crisis sharpened their mind. Crisis taught them to stand in the chaos without trembling. It built the version of them that could handle storms, because they were born in one. People wonder why they don't discover their purpose while everything is comfortable, because comfort never demands it. Comfort lets you hide from your potential. Crisis drags you straight into it. When everything is falling apart, suddenly your priorities rearrange themselves. Suddenly your vision gets clearer. Suddenly the noise fades, and only what matters remains. And in that stripped down, pressure-filled state, the version of you that was meant to lead, meant to fight, meant to endure steps out of hiding. There's a strange beauty in watching someone who's been pushed to their breaking point, because right at the edge of breaking, something else happens. They stop caring about opinions. They stop waiting for permission. They stop doubting themselves. Crisis burns away hesitation like fire burns away dead wood. What emerges afterward isn't a weaker version, it's a cleaner one. Sharper, leaner, more awake. The version built not for applause, but for survival. Not for comfort, but for impact. And maybe that's why crisis is never really the enemy. It feels cruel, but it reveals truth. It feels destructive, but it shapes destiny. Crisis doesn't come to show you how weak you are, it comes to show you why you haven't broken yet. It comes to remind you that inside you there is a version that doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, doesn't fear the storm. A version that rises not because life is kind, but because you've been forged in moments when life wasn't. And once you meet that version of yourself, the one awakened by crisis, you never forget them. They become the voice inside you that whispers during the next storm, "You've survived worse." They become the part of you that stands a little taller, breathes a little deeper, moves a little faster. They become the proof that no matter how messy life gets, there is always a version of you built to rise from. The rubble, built to fight through the chaos, built to turn disasters into chapters of strength. And the moment you realize that version exists is the moment crisis loses its power to terrify you. Because now you know it's not coming to destroy you. It's coming to introduce you to yourself. Fear is a funny little thing. It tiptoes into your mind without knocking, sits in the corner, and waits for the perfect moment to whisper doubts that sound like truths. It doesn't shout, it doesn't scream, it just whispers. Softly, persistently, convincingly. And before you even realize it, your feet stop moving, your hands stop reaching, your thoughts stop daring. Fear freezes you long before danger ever arrives. People think fear protects them, but really, it cages them. And the cage is built from the stories they tell themselves at 3 a.m. when no one is watching. Fear loves stillness. It loves the way you pause before making a decision. It loves the way your mind replays every worst-case scenario in vivid detail. It loves how easily you believe the lies it feeds you. Fear doesn't need to use force. All it needs is your imagination, and suddenly you're trapped by things that haven't even happened yet. It's almost poetic how something that isn't real can hold you prisoner more effectively than the things that are. Imagine someone standing at the edge of change, a step away from becoming someone stronger, someone wiser, someone freer. And then fear walks in and casually places a hand on their shoulder. That single touch turns muscles stiff and thoughts heavy. They freeze, not because they can't move, but because fear convinces them that moving is dangerous. Fear is clever like that. It stops you before the world even gets a chance to challenge you. You become your own obstacle, your own enemy, your own chains. But there's something fear hates with a passion, purpose. Fear can paralyze your body, but it can't extinguish something burning inside you. Purpose doesn't whisper. It pounds, thunders, roars. Purpose doesn't wait politely for permission. It pushes, pulls, drags you forward even when fear sinks its claws into your back. Purpose is the one thing fear can't fully dominate because purpose has something fear never will: direction. A target, a reason, a truth. When a person has purpose, even a small one, fear starts losing its grip. You can see it in the eyes of someone who's found their why. There's a fire in them that refuses to die, no matter how cold their circumstances become. They still shake, they still doubt, they still feel the shadows creeping in. But they move anyway, and that's what fear can't stand: movement. Fear thrives when you sit still, but purpose thrives when you take even the smallest step forward. Picture someone whose world is falling apart. Fear tells them, stay down. But purpose whispers something different. It says, get up, Not because you're ready, not because it's easy, but because staying down isn't who you are meant to be. Purpose doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your becoming. Fear wants to freeze you. Purpose wants to free you. And every time you choose purpose over fear, you steal a little of fear's power. People often say they don't know their purpose,